A very good evening to all respected dignitaries, distinguished members of the Institute, our honored guests, and each one of you who have joined us today. It is with great respect that I welcome you all to the 18th V. Shankar Aiyer Memorial Lecture. This evening we gathered not only to honor the memory of late CA V. Shankar Aiyer, but also to reflect on the values and contribution that continue to inspire generations. We all privileged to have with us Dr. S.Y. Quraishi and Advocate Manuraj Shunmugasundaram, whose presence adds great meaning to this occasion. Now, I would like to, with the great honor, I invite C.A. Revati Raghunathan, Chairperson of SIRC, C.A. Venkat Raman, and Ms. Yamini Aiyer, to escort Dr. S.Y. Quraishi and Advocate Manuraj Shunmugam to the dais. Now I request everyone to kindly raise for the ICI motto song.
Yaesha supteshu jagrati Yaesha supteshu jagrati Kamam 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 Pursho nirmimanaha Tadev shukram Tad Brahma Tadeva amritamucchate Tasmin lokaha shataha Sarve tadunatyati kaschan Etadvaita
Thank you all. Now we move to a very special and blessed part of this evening, the floral tribute to late C.A.V. Shankar Aiyer. This gesture is a symbol of our deep respect and gratitude for his life and legacy. May I kindly invite C.A. Revati Raghunathan, Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, followed by Advocate Manuraj Shunmugam, Ms. Yamini, and C.A. Venkatraman to come forward and offer flowers before his portrait. I also invite all the well-wishers to join in praying their floral tribute. Thank you all. It is indeed a true privilege to welcome a leader who perfectly balanced professional excellence with a historical legacy of first. Join us this evening, CA Revati Raghunathan, the chairperson of SIRC of ICAI, a visionary who has redefined leadership in the world of finance. So I would like to request ma'am to please deliver the welcome speech. Thank you.
A very warm good evening to everyone here. Shri Quraishi sir. We are deeply honored that you could make it here today to give this memorial lecture. Yamini Iyer, daughter of Mr. Mani Shankar Iyer and granddaughter of CA Shankar Iyer, Advocate Manuraj, and CA Venkatraman, a senior chartered accountant and partner in Shankar Iyer and Co. And to the members and all the students also who are present here today, to listen to Quraishi sir speak on demography and delimitation. I know that predominantly there are students here, and I just would take the liberty to Quraishi sir to just tell the students a few words. If you take this brochure or the flyer for this program, in fact you can see it on the screen. You'll see sir is going to speak on Census 2027 demography and delimitation, and special address. You have the address given by Quraishi sir, and then the discussant, Advocate Manuraj Shunmugasundaram. There are three words here which are extremely important. One is discussant. I don't know how many of you would have actually checked out what is the meaning or who is a discussant. And two, demography and delimitation. Is it like eat, pray, love, something which was just coined together, or is it actually going to make any kind of, why has the topic been selected that it is Census 2027, demography and delimitation? Most of you will be voters, the students, right? Looking forward to voting, right? And many of you may be first time voters, and I think that after listening to Quraishi sir, you all will definitely not fail your duty in actually exercising your right to franchise. You all would know what is the meaning of demography. Yes, we know what is the meaning of delimitation, right? But what exactly is delimitation and demography and census? What is the link between all the three? That is very, very thought-provoking. When the Census 2027 is going to be started and completed, what it is going to define is how the electoral constituencies are going to be divided, right? We have the north and the south, and what is the demographic shift which is going to happen. We all know how the birth rates in the southern states are declining, while the birth states in the northern states are actually still at par at what it was in 1971, or in fact some may be increasing also. And you all know how representations in government is decided. It is based on the population in the various states, right? So that is called as delimitation. So sir is actually going to speak to us about what is demography and delimitation and how the census is going to affect. See, we need to have equal representation in the parliament. So if north is going to have a higher percentage of population, then automatically it means that there will be more representatives from the northern states, and it is decreasing in the southern states. So what is the political impact of that going to be? So it's going to be a very thought-provoking speech by sir, and you are all extremely fortunate that you get to listen to someone of Quraishi sir's stature who's come here and who is going to talk on this. I wish I had this kind of an opportunity when I was younger. I had never had the opportunity to attend, speeches by intellectuals such as Quraishi sir. And of course, Yamini is an economist. She's working in policy. And let me tell you, when I was a student like you all, economics was my most hated subject. Probably because I could not understand too much or understand the context with which economic policies and economic matters were discussed. And the moment you take your economics material, I would always doze off. But now I find that economics, policy, politics, everything makes so much of sense. And as a chartered accountant, my understanding of what my role as a chartered accountant is and how it is actually going to have an impact on the economy of the country, which in turn is, decided by the policies of the country, which is what Yamini Iyer is actually going to talk to us on. I mean, that is where she practices. And of course, we all know how important an advocate is in our society. The judiciary plays a very, very important role. And I like to think that chartered accountants and judiciaries are, balancing the scale of dispensing justice, at least financial justice. So I want to thank SANKAR AIYAR sir for actually continuing the legacy of inviting intellectuals like Quraishi sir to come here and share his thoughts on many important topics. And today sir's opinions and talk on Census 2027, I'm sure. Oh, Shankar Iyer sir is connected online, so he is also there with us. He is the son of Mr. Shankar Iyer, and I think that sir is going to actually trigger a lot of thought in everyone who is sitting here. And I hope that the students especially today is going to actually going to be memorable for you, because these are thoughts of intellectuals which is actually going to give you a grounding on this and an understanding of the policy, politics and the general economic matters of the country. So thank you once again sir, and thank you very much SANKAR AIYAR sir for joining us online. We are missing your physical presence here, and thanks a ton for organizing this thought-provoking session for us, and thank you Yamini for coming here, and of course Advocate Manuraj also.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to request CA Venkatraman from Iyer firm to introduce our today's chief guest, Dr. S.Y. Quraishi sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to introduce two distinguished speakers, Dr. Quraishi and Shri Manuraj Shunmugasundaram. Dr. Quraishi, he was born on 11th June 1947, completed his Masters from St. Stephen's College in Delhi before joining Indian Administrative Service in 1971. He received his PhD also on the thesis of role of communication in social marketing and development of women and children. He was the 7th Chief Election Commissioner of India between 30 July 2010 to 10th June 2012. Earlier, he held the position of Election Commissioner since 30 June 2006. As a part of the three-member commission, he conducted the elections of the offices of the President, Vice President, general elections to the Lok Sabha 2009 and various state elections. In the management of election, he has brought about special focus on people's participation, voters' education and youth involvement. Earlier to the joining Election Commission, he was Secretary of Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports of Government of India. He had served 35 years and he had served and rendered a distinguished service in civil service both in federal and state levels before joining Election Commission. He is known for his special contributions in social sector reforms covering health, education, population, drug abuse and civil society action. Then he has done extensive work in the fields of gender, women, child development, AIDS, youth and adolescent issues. UN and other international agencies, organizations have availed his expertise in these areas. Further, Dr. Quraishi held the offices of Special Secretary Health and Director General of National AIDS Control Organization. He has pulled together a lot of national and international agencies for creating a strategic framework for India's phase number 3 AIDS control program. He pioneered India's biggest AIDS awareness program and IEC campaign called University Talk AIDS that is in 159 universities. He was a Director General of Doordarshan. He also held the Director General Office of Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangetan, which is the largest rural health development agency. He founded Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development. He was a team leader in framing Indian National's Perspective Plan for Youth in 2020. Dr. Quraishi is also known for power sector reforms. He negotiated 600 million World Bank loan for reform and privatization of private sector in Haryana when he was a Secretary of Development at Department of Power and National Non-Conventional Energy, which was evaluated as one of the 10 best of the world by the World Bank Quality Assurance Team. He also served as Secretary Irrigation in Haryana, as Additional Secretary for Ministries Renewable Energy and also Steel in Government of India. He piloted wide-ranging reforms when he was serving there. He has a credit to his credit number of books, articles written by him, and is on the topic of democracy, elections, HIV, AIDS, family planning, etc. He has received prestigious awards in recognition of his contribution to civic society and human development issues. Notable among them are Nehru Fellow for Innovative and Outstanding Work in Child Welfare, Secular India Harmony Award for Contribution to Human Understanding, Silver Elephant National Award of Indian Scouts and Guides in recognition of service of most exceptional character to the movement, Shiromani Award for Merit, High Caliber and Commitment to National Progress and Human Welfare. He has also widely traveled across India and globe, and he had headed a lot of delegations in various international conferences. He is an avid musician. With this great tribute to his credit, points to the credits, I welcome Dr. Quraishi for this meeting. Thank you. And Shri Manuraj Shunmugasundaram, I have a pleasure in introducing him. He is one of the founding partners of Ganeshan and Manuraj Legal LLP and is an advocate practicing in Madras High Court. Ganeshan and Manuraj Legal LLP, the firm, has been ranked as Tier 1 firm in Chennai City, focused by Legal 500. He is also national media spokesperson for the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam party and joint secretary of NRA wing of DMK. Shri Manuraj has significant experience in assessing complex constitutional and criminal matters. He has represented parties in high-profile cases of alleged money laundering and other economic offences. He also specializes in election laws, having appeared in various election cases. He was always worked to advance the cause of responsible politics, participatory governance and social justice. He has also worked as a policy advisor to members of parliament. He undertakes a variety of pro bono cases, that is, he has been rendering without taking a fee. He, in one of the writ petition before Madras High Court, in the case of Sushma and Anwar versus Commissioner of Police, it led to the Madras High Court to lay down extensive guidelines for the advancement of LGBT community and as well as sensitization of the media and police in this regard. In 2023, Manuraj was one of the recommended leading lawyers in the Legal 500 Asia Pacific rankings. Manuraj serves as an on the advisory committee to the Chief Minister on welfare of Sri Lankan Tamil refugees. He has been appointed as amicus curiae by Madras High Court in a case involving citizenship of Tamil refugee. He has been part of Legislative Fellows Program of the US State Department 2010, delegate of the Australia-India Youth Dialogue in 2014, member of European Union Visitors Program in 2015, part of Indian delegation of Project Interchange to Israeli-Palestine in 2015, and so on. He is a regular writer in Indian newspapers such as Hindu, Indian Express, Times of India, and often appears in television channels. He is a fellow of Anand Aspan Kamalanayan Bajaj Fellowship. He serves as a trustee of Raja Mutaya Research Library Trust from 2023. He has delivered lectures at various places like at King's College London, University of Cambridge, University of Oxford, London School of Economics, Goldsmiths College, University of London, Loyola College, Jindal Global University on various aspects. He is currently working on a book to be published by Penguin in 2025. Thank you. I welcome the lawyer, Mr. Manuraj. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, as a token of our gratitude and respect, may I kindly invite CA Revati Raghunathan to kindly present a memento and shawl to Dr. S.Y. Quraishi, sir. Please join me in acknowledging their contribution with a warm round of applause. Now, I would like to request Miss Yamini Iyer ma'am to please present the memento and shawl to our Chief Guest Advocate Manuraj sir. I would request everybody. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Now, it is my honor to invite Dr. S.Y. Quraishi sir to deliver the memorial lecture. Thank you.
Done? Okay. Friends, good evening. I've never given a written speech earlier, but I thought the subject being serious and sensitive, and the audience, expected audience in Chennai, highly distinguished and discriminating, and in the presence of my former boss, my eternal boss, Mr. Shankar Aiyyar. Unfortunately, he's not here physically, but he's with us online. He's not well. But I was honored when he invited me to give this lecture. So it's a new experience for me to be speaking from a written speech. But for your convenience, I know how boring written speech can be. So to make it easier for you, I've given you a copy in your hand so that when I'm reading, you are also reading. So you will be able to understand and grasp everything, because there are some facts, there are some tongue twisters which would have confused also. It will be, and I believe in user convenience. Common sense. I break the rules for convenience. I am sure it will be good for you. You might have noticed I had a problem walking up the stage, and Yamini had to give me a hand. I have weakness in my legs, but I would like to assure you my spine, my backbone is absolutely intact. And my mind also works a little still. So I hope I'll be able to do justice to this very important and extremely sensitive topic. It's an honor to deliver this memorial lecture in memory of Shri V. SANKAR AIYAR, a man who embodied intellectual rigor and unwavering commitment to constitutional values. I am grateful to Shri Manishankar Aiyar ji for this invitation. When Manishankar ji asked me to speak today, he proposed two themes: the 2027 census and the forthcoming delimitation exercise. These are subjects close to my heart anyway. They represent the foundational arithmetic of democracy itself. But as I reflected, I realized these themes converge on two additional questions that have troubled my democratic conscience. The first is the Women's Reservation Act and when it will actually take effect. The second is more fundamental: whether our electoral system, the very mechanism by which we convert votes into seats, remains fit for the democracy we have become. Today I want to examine all four, not as isolated subjects, but as interconnected constitutional challenges that will define Indian democracy for the next generation. And I want to share a personal journey, how conducting elections for decades led me to question the very rules of the game. The turning point came in 2014. For most of my career at the Election Commission and even earlier in the field, my job was to conduct elections, not to question their rules. The electoral system, that is first past the post, came as a given, part of the constitutional furniture. And I defended it in seminars, in my book, which is called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election. I explained why FPTP, first past the post, worked for India. It was simple, it was stable, it preserved the link between voter and representative. Then came the 2014 general election. And one result, just one result, a single statistic from Uttar Pradesh forced me to rethink everything I had believed about fair representation. The Bahujan Samaj Party secured approximately 20% of the vote in Uttar Pradesh, the third largest vote share in the state, in fact in the country. But there were 0 seats. 20% votes, 0 seats. Not reduced representation, but 0. Now think about what this means. Millions of voters, Dalits, OBCs, minorities, queued at polling stations, pressed the button next to their chosen symbol, and went home believing they had exercised their democratic right and ensured their voice in parliament. And they had indeed exercised their democratic right. Legally, procedurally, everything was correct. But the arithmetic of first past the post meant that 1/5 of UP's electorate, their collective voice, would have no presence in parliament whatsoever. Why did this happen? Because under FPTP, only the candidate who comes first in each constituency wins. Every other vote means nothing. This is not a bug. This is how the system is designed. For decades, I accepted this. The distortion seemed the price we paid for stable government and simple administration. But when substantial vote shares consistently translate into 0 representation, when 1/5 of an electorate has no voice, we must ask, is the system still working as democracy requires? Now, what electoral systems do? Different electoral systems treat democracy differently. One magnifies big parties, another brings smaller parties into focus. One emphasizes local constituencies, another highlights national vote shares. We often speak loosely of the will of the people as if it was a single clearly defined object. In reality, what we call the will of the people is largely the product of how we choose and count and aggregate votes. Electoral systems decide how many votes are wasted. Whether a party with 35-40% votes can enjoy a brute majority of seats, how easy or difficult it is for women, minorities and small parties to get into legislatures, and whether politics becomes a winner takes all contest. The winner may be a single party or a coalition, but if they win, they take it all. Electoral systems are not technical footnotes. They shape the character of a democracy. Majoritarianism is one face of it. To understand alternatives, consider how democracies around the world have grappled with this question. Britain and India chose the simplest answer: divide the country into single member constituencies and declare whoever gets the most votes the winner. First past the post had the elegance of an athletics race. First across the line wins, no questions asked. Continental Europe chose proportional representation. If a party wins 30% of the vote, it gets 30% of the seats. It sounds fair, and in many ways it is. Smaller parties, regional voices, and marginalized communities get into parliament in numbers that mirror their actual support. But the trade-off is real. Voters choose party labels, not individual candidates. Voters have no identifiable representative to turn to for solving their problems. Who is their MP? Who is their MLA? They've only voted for a party. MPs answer more to party bosses. MP who has been selected by this PR system is answerable only to the party bosses. Doesn't care about the voters because you have not voted for him directly. They answer to party bosses who control the list. And what do I mean by controlling the list? The party gives a list of say 50 candidates, and if they get 10% of the seat share, the top 10 become MPs or MLAs. And who will be those top 10? The chief minister, his wife, his nephew, his grandson, and all the top 10 will be his own family. So that is the downside of this is called closed list, when the list is already determined. There is also something called open list, where the voter can actually choose out of that list, I am voting for this party, but within this party I am choosing such and such candidate, which is considered even better. If there are too many parties, parliaments can fragment into a dozen quarreling factions. If 5%, 3%, 10%, so, and 40% majority, which makes the government, will become a minority with 60% joining. So that is the downside, and we have to find a balance for it. That is where the mixed system comes in. Pioneered by Germany after World War II and adopted by New Zealand in the 1990s, these try to have it both ways. Keep the local constituency link that voters value, but add a layer of proportional correction. Now, how mixed systems work? Each voter gets 2 votes. One for my candidate in my area and one for my party nationally or state level, regionally. Now, Parliament has 2 types of seats. Constituency seats filled by FTPT system and list seats allocated to parties, so their total share of parliament matches their share of the party vote. If a party wins 40% of the party vote but only 30% of constituency seats, it gets extra list seats to reach 40% overall. The list seats top up party's representation, so their final seat count matches their vote share. If it is 40% vote share, 40% seat. If it is 10% vote share, 10% seats. What are the lists? I have explained to you actually. Seats are allocated to parties proportionally based on their vote share, and candidates are elected sequentially from each party's list according to their position. As I mentioned, the top guys will always be the relatives of the top boss of the party. And which is closed list. And voter preference in open list. No party with substantial support ends up with zero representation, as happened with Mayawati's party in UP, which is my trigger for rethink of the entire system. For years, these seemed intellectually interesting, but practically distant. Experiments for a small, homogeneous country. But India's politics fragmented and FPT began producing grotesque distortions, the mixed model started to look more relevant. A mixed model for India. I have suggested adaptation of mixed model system suitable for India. What I have come to believe and recorded in the third reprint of my book, in my first issue of my Undocumented Wonder, I had examined all the electoral systems of the world and voted for FPTP and listed all the benefits we get out of it. But by then the 2014 election happened, my book was going for the third reprint, and I changed my thinking, although it is very difficult for an author to change his views because people might think he's a fickle-minded guy, he changes his opinion every day. But after seeing this very grave example, it was impossible for me not to change my mind. What I have come to believe and recorded in the third reprint of my book is that India should seriously consider a mixed electoral system adapted for our realities. The model would work like this. Retain all existing 543 seat constituencies exactly as they are. Add proportional list seats on top. If we add 268 additional seats, the total number of parliament in Lok Sabha will go up to 811. And 33% of reservation of women can be implemented without disturbing 543 existing seats. For 26 years, politicians have opposed this system because the male voters didn't want to lose their constituencies. Because if male 33, one-third constituencies are reserved for women, I have been nursing my constituency for 30 years, I am thrown out. That is why they opposed it for all these years. Now, to take care of that, we will not disturb you. On top of that, we will add 33% for women. So, that is the best possible alternative. Now, retain all existing 543 FTPT constituencies exactly as they are and add proportional list seats on top. And I have calculated 268 additional seats, raising the total number to 811. If it is 811, one-third for reservation for women will mean 268. That is why this figure 268 comes. The new parliament chamber has capacity of 888 members, which provides ample room for expansion. Now each voter gets 2 votes, one for their local constituency candidate for FTPT, one for a party. The list seats top each party's total, so their combined share, constituency seats plus list seats, matches their vote share. Consider how they solve the 2014 problem which I have been talking about. A party that receives 20% votes in a state but wins no seats would be entitled to roughly 20% of that state's total seats. This list seats would bring their representation in line with their actual support. Now, that may make formation of a government difficult because all these collection of opposition parties, if they come together, the largest party with 40% will become a minority. So we have to take care of that also. So a via media, which I am suggesting, could be at least half of their vote share so that the winning party does not feel threatened. 20% vote share given to Mayawati, don't give her 20 seats, but at least give her 10%. Give her 5%, some percent, so that at least her voice reaches parliament. Thus, a party with strong support but inefficient geographic distribution would no longer be wiped out. The principle becomes every vote should count, not only those in the winning column. Every vote should count. To maintain federal balance, list seats would be allocated at state level, not from a single national list. You understand that? The 40-50 names are in the list. if they are nationally. So there will be a man from Odisha, from Assam, from Bengal, and you are voting in Tamil Nadu. What use is that list for you? For Tamil Nadu, it will be a Tamil Nadu list for every party. So that is a local list, regional list. Now, party list could be designated with clear rules. I am giving you reservation, but of that, within that, you have to accommodate women. You have to accommodate OBC. So some conditions can be imposed through this, because a woman will come into parliament without any election, but there could be some conditions. So those conditions is what I am suggesting for an Indian model. There could be reservation within reservation for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and OBC, which means 268 reservation for women will include SC women, ST women, OBC women. So that even the caste share is not disturbed and women's quota is not disturbed. To avoid excessive fragmentation, a threshold would be essential. For example, a party must secure at least 4-5% of state votes to be eligible for the list seats. This discourages fringe parties with 1 or 2 members while allowing serious smaller parties representation. And this is something which we have learned from German and other models, because too many 1 or 2 member parties will only create problems. So only serious parties, but with a decent number. Now India need to look not only to distant Germany. Our neighbor Nepal uses exactly this model which I am talking about, as does Sri Lanka. It has been doing it for a longer time. For the Nepal House of Representatives, 165 MPs are elected from single member constituencies by FTPT, 165, and 110 from party lists. The constitution requires party lists to include women, Dalits, marginalized group in roughly their proportion, which is what I just explained. If seats are reserved for you, but within that reservation there will be reservation for the groups. This design, first used in 2008 in Nepal, produced an immediate jump in women's representation from under 6% to over 30%. That's one election, simple, easy to do reform, and brought historically excluded groups into parliament in significant numbers, something FTPT had never delivered. Nepal shows that within South Asian political culture, it is possible to blend individual constituencies with lists and use the combination to correct caste, ethnic and gender imbalances. Some worry that a 2-vote system will confuse voters. This argument is patronizing and empirically weak. Sri Lankan and Nepali voters have faced no such problem. The Indian voter has reportedly shown remarkable flexibility. They distinguish between Lok Sabha and Assembly polls held simultaneously. They vote differently in national and state elections. They have adapted to EVMs and VVPATs. So it's not wise to underestimate the intelligence of the voters. Give them 2 votes, one for a local candidate, one for a party, is well within their capacity. Now, the constitutional moment, census 2027, and I believe only today first announcement of the next census has been made. Household surveys, some dates have been announced, as Yamini was telling me a while ago. And here is where this connects to what I have discussed so far. We are approaching a unique constitutional moment. Census 2027 will count approximately 1.45 billion people. The Census of India is not merely a bureaucratic exercise in enumeration. It is democracy's foundation, the bedrock upon which representation, resource allocation and constitutional equity rests. Every 10 years, India undertakes what is perhaps the world's largest peacetime mobilization. In 2011, we enumerated 1.21 billion people. In 2027, we will count approximately 1.45 billion. Think about that scale. 1.45 billion individual lives, each one counted, each one mattering for democratic purposes. Actually, the census should have been conducted in 2021. It is, for the last 100 years, it has been conducted without fail. Even during the World War, it has been conducted on the dot in first and 11th and 21st year. So it should have been conducted in 2021. We know why it wasn't. The COVID-19 pandemic made large-scale enumeration impossible. That delay was unavoidable and correct. But now we face 2027, and this census carries extraordinary weight because of what depends on it. Here is what 2027 census will determine. First, parliamentary representation. Seat allocation among states depends on population. For the first time since 1976, we may redistribute seats based on current demographics. Second, state boundaries and administrative units, district creation, constituency demarcation, local body formation all flow from census data. Third, resource allocation. Finance Commission recommendations, centrally sponsored schemes, special category status, all are calibrated using census figures. Fourth, social policy, SC, ST, OBC populations, literacy rates, sex ratios, migration patterns, these determine affirmative action policies. Fifth, constitutional amendments. The Women's Reservation Act explicitly ties implementation to the first census taken after the year 2026. So this is not just counting, this is the numerical architecture of Indian federalism. But conducting the 2027 census presents two formidable challenges. First, there is the caste census question. There is enormous political pressure to include caste enumeration beyond SC, ST categories. The last caste census was done in 1931, nearly a century ago. The Mandal Commission used 1931 data. Should we enumerate OBC populations? If yes, how do we handle the political sensitivities? If not, how do we justify excluding nearly 40% of India's population from enumeration? This question will not go away. Second, there is a timeline challenge. 2011 census was conducted in February-March 2011. Final population figures were published in March 2013, 2 years later. Why so long? Because of data verification, quality checks, reconciliation across 640 districts, error correction, multiple layers of validation. Democratic legitimacy requires accuracy. If the census is conducted in early 27, we should expect final published figures by late 2028. Optimistically, in early 2029, if we go by past history, it has taken 2 years. But that would be a normal expectation. There could be some surprises. Now, what surprise? Maybe I'll explain to you later. One is this: for the first time, the census is going to be digital. Since if the government is in a hurry and this government can do anything because they are smart, so maybe they can publish what was published earlier in 2 years, in 2 months, because all digitally collected. You never know. And immediately followed by delimitation commission, which also already homework done, which may also come out instead of 5-6 years, results in 1 year. Now, why census 2027 assumes a special significance? It can open the old wounds of demographic changes. This brings me to delimitation, a very sensitive issue for the South particularly. Delimitation is the process of redrawing constituency boundaries to ensure equal representation. Article 82 mandates it after every census. Article 82 mandates it after every census. The principle is simple: one person, one vote, one value. Constituencies should have roughly equal populations. As population shifts, boundaries must adjust. simple in principle, explosive in practice. Here is what most Indians don't realize. Our current parliamentary constituencies are based on the 1971 census. Let me repeat that. 1971 census. Lok Sabha seat distribution among states has been frozen since 1976 based on 1971 population figures for 54 years. Why? Because in 1976 Parliament passed the 42nd Amendment freezing seat allocation until 2001. In 2001 the freeze was extended to 226. This year that freeze ends. Now you will notice, which I have not mentioned here, that sometimes people say that the first freeze happened because it was emergency period and Indira Gandhi froze it for political reasons. But mind you, the second freeze happened under Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, which means the logic which compelled the government of the day to freeze it continued till 2001, and I dare say that it continues even now, because the logic hasn't changed. But let us see how it develops. The reasoning was understandable. Don't punish states for successful family planning. If we reallocated seats after every census, states that control population growth would lose parliamentary seats. States with high birth rates would gain seats. Now this created a perverse incentive. Population control would mean political marginalization. So we froze the map for half a century. But that freeze ends after the 2027 census, and the demographic reality is stark. In 1971, Uttar Pradesh had 85 Lok Sabha seats. Today, with current population, if we go only by population, it would have approximately 140 seats, perhaps more, from 80 to 140. And compare it with Tamil Nadu, what will happen here? In 71, Tamil Nadu had 39 seats, that will go down to 28 to 30 seats, because you have done good family planning. Now that logic obviously would not, that is the reason for the freeze. So, but we have to deal with this. That's why I called it explosive. Now, other four states, Kerala, Karnataka, Andhra and Telangana, all would lose seats proportionally. Conversely, UP, Bihar, MP and Rajasthan all would gain. Maybe West Bengal very marginally. Southern states have already signaled resistance. Tamil Nadu's political consensus across all parties is clear. We will not accept reduced representation as punishment for responsible population control. The other four chief ministers have agreed. Their argument is powerful. You incentivized us to control population. We did. Now we are reducing our voice in parliament. This violates the federal compact. Northern states respond. Democracy means representation. One person, one vote, one value. We cannot have constituencies of wildly different sizes. That violates equality. Also a point. Both arguments have constitutional merit. Both have democratic logic. But both cannot be fully satisfied simultaneously. That is our complex dilemma which we have to deal with. When the delimitation committee is constituted after the 2027 census, it will face redrawing 543 parliamentary constituencies across 28 states based on current population, plus over 4,000 state assembly constituencies with the same distribution challenges. How long will this take? History tells us previous delimitations took 3 to 6 years. The 2002 commission, which was the last, was supposed to finish in 2004. It was completed in 2008. Whereas its work was actually half, it was not to disturb the constituency within the allocation of seats to the states. It was to be left untouched. Now why so long? Because every boundary affects political futures. Every draft provokes objection. States litigate. Parties challenge. Courts intervene. Which is why it is a cumbersome process and it cannot be compressed in less than 3 years. But as I said, Always be ready for surprises. Courts have limited but existing power to intervene in delimitation matters. They cannot question the substantive decisions or merits of constituency boundaries drawn by the Delimitation Commission. But they can examine whether the Commission has violated constitutional provisions, exceeded its jurisdiction, or breached principles of natural justice. The Delimitation Act typically contains provisions restricting judicial review, often stating that Commission's orders have force of law and cannot be questioned in any court. But the Supreme Court said no. It has held that constitutional validity and procedural compliance remain justiciable, ensuring delimitation doesn't operate entirely beyond the judicial scrutiny despite being largely insulated from it. If the census figures are published in early 2029 and the Delimitation Commission is constituted mid-2029, we should expect completion of delimitation by 2032 at the earliest, possibly 33 or 33 or 34. But as I said, here again we can't rule out surprises. The expansion question. Now, when I talk of surprises, what I mean is that by this calculation, 2029 women's reservation cannot be implemented. It is not a political statement, it is simple arithmetic. So, but I have tried to offer a solution also. Now the expansion question. But there is another possibility, expansion. The current Lok Sabha, as I mentioned, has 543 seats. The new parliament building has a capacity for 888 members. Why this larger capacity? Because one solution to the north-south impasse is to expand the house rather than reallocate seats. Just expand the house. Instead of UP gaining 55 seats, Tamil Nadu losing 9 seats, we could have the situation where UP gains 55 seats and Tamil Nadu gains 3 seats. Total house expands to 80. But it doesn't really, it's not a consolation for Tamil Nadu or southern states. This softens the political pain though. Southern states don't lose absolute numbers, but proportional share. Absolute numbers, in fact, the Home Minister has repeatedly announced, quoting Prime Minister, that we will not touch your absolute numbers. 39 will not become 38, we assure you. But simultaneously, if UP become 80 to 140, so proportionally you go down, and people in Parliament do not vote in proportions. They vote in absolute number, equal the number. Every vote is single, it's not proportion. Now, but this raises profound questions. How large should our parliament be? We are talking about expansion. How much expansion? Is 800 optimal? 888, 750, whatever? That these are calculations which can be done. We have to just first accept the principle. What is the democratic ideal between representation and functionality? And critically, does expansion require delimitation first? Or can Parliament expand now before delimitation? This matters enormously, as I'll show you as we turn to women's reservation, which is my next subject. This brings me to the fourth theme, women's representation. In September 2023, Parliament passed the 128th Constitutional Amendment, Women's Reservation Act. 1/3 of all Lok Sabha and State Assembly seats will be reserved for women. This is historic, transformative, necessary. But there is a clause. Article 334A states the provision shall come into force after an exercise of delimitation is undertaken for this purpose, after the relevant figures for the first census taken, after the 26 have been published. There are 3 afters in one sentence. Read that carefully. After the census taken after 2026. Then delimitation, then reservation. Now let me ask, when is the next general election? You all know 2029. Here is why all 4 themes converge into a single unavoidable conclusion. Census in 27, publication in 28 or 29, followed by delimitation in 29 to 32, followed by women's reservation implementation in 2034. The 29 election will happen before the constitutional prerequisites can possibly be completed. This is not political prediction. This is arithmetic. Indian women were promised reservation in 2023. They will wait until at least 2034, 11 years. After they have already waited 28 years, because the first women's reservation bill was introduced in 1996 and has been languishing in Parliament ever since. Why link reservation to census and delimitation? Can we de-link the two? The political calculus is clear. If you implement reservation immediately in the existing 543 seats, 181 MPs lose their constituencies. Not from anti-incumbency, but because of reservation. No party wanted that cause. So they tied reservation to delimitation and expansion. When the House expands to say 800 or perhaps 888, you can reserve 1/3 for women without displacing most incumbents. Political pain is absorbed by expansion, not replacement. Clever politics, but delayed justice. But here is the deeper problem. By linking women's reservation to delimitation, we have entangled women's constitutional right with the most explosive political question in Indian federalism, North-South demographic balance. Keep deciding that, keep fighting about it, until then women's reservation hangs in balance. Women must now wait while states fight over population-based representation. Their constitutional promise is held hostage to federal demographic politics. The solutions. But here is the crucial point. The constitutional barrier is not inevitable. Parliament created it. Parliament can remove it. 4 pathways are available. Option 1, de-link from delimitation. Reserve 1/3 of the existing seats immediately. After delimitation, recalibrate to new boundaries. No constitutional barriers, no decade-long wait. Option 2, expand first but reserve now. Parliament can increase Lok Sabha seats through constitutional amendment before delimitation. Add about 270 seats or 268 as I have been mentioning. Reserve those for women immediately. After delimitation, integrate them into new structure. As a result, in 2029 we will have 1/3 women present. Option 3, use 2027 provisional data plus demographic projection. Option 4, and this brings us full circle, implement through a mixed electoral system. If Parliament adopts a mixed electoral system, adding 270 proportional seats with mandatory inclusion quotas, women's reservation becomes operational in 2029. No decade-long wait, no displacement of incumbents. These proportional list seats would be subject to mandatory quotas. There will be 1/3 women, and among them SC women, ST women, OBC women, proportional to their population. This option addresses not just women's representation but also proportionality deficit of 2014, as I had mentioned, the North-South seat allocation crisis, the inclusion of minorities and marginalized communities. One constitutional reform, multiple democratic gains. All 4 options are constitutionally sound, all 4 are politically feasible. What is required is not constitutional creativity, but political will. Why now and why together? The question isn't whether this is theoretically better. The question is, when is the right time? And the answer is, when the constitution is being reopened anyway. We are about to conduct the first census in 16 years, undertake the first delimitation in 54 years, redraw every parliamentary assembly constituency, potentially expand the Lok Sabha to 800 or 888 and implement women's reservation. It is now, when all the moving parts are already in motion. If not now, then when? To reopen the electoral map but keep the old distortions would be a generational missed opportunity. I'm not proposing Parliament pass this tomorrow. What I'm proposing is that as we approach 2027, we constitute a high-level, non-partisan expert group involving all major parties, constitutional scholars and the Election Commission to seriously examine whether a mixed system could address multiple democratic deficits simultaneously. The electoral system belongs to the people, not to the governments of the day. Any reform must be built on the widest possible consensus. But the conversation must begin now, because 2027 is not distant. Conclusion. And let me conclude with this. I have spent my life working with India's constitutional institutions. As Chief Election Commissioner, I saw democracy's machinery up close, its power, its promise, and yes, its pathologies. And I learned one principle. Institutions work only when we make them work. The census doesn't conduct itself. The delimitation doesn't happen automatically. Electoral systems don't reform themselves. Reservation doesn't implement itself. These require political will, institutional courage, and democratic commitment. Do we stumble through these exercises reactively, managing crises as they emerge, or do we approach them strategically with foresight and federal grace? Do we let women wait another decade when solutions exist now? Do we let substantial vote shares continue to translate into zero representation when we know how to correct it? Do we let the census trigger unmanaged political earthquakes, or do we build the consensus needed to weather them? These are the choices before us. The census is 2 years away, now 1 year away. Constitutional deadlines approach. In the third reprint of my book, An Undocumented Wonder, as I mentioned, I acknowledged publicly that I had changed my mind. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Let us choose clarity. Let us choose action. Let us make our constitutional promises real. For the women who waited 28 years, for the voters whose voices are reduced to zero under the current system, for the states anxious about their federal voice, for the democratic principle that our institutions should serve the people, not defer their rights indefinitely. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
We sincerely thank Dr. S.Y. Quraishi sir for taking the time. We are truly enriched by this wisdom, and we'll carry forward this insight with gratitude and respect. Now it's my honor to invite Advocate Manuraj Shunmugasundaram to deliver the discussant. Thank you.
I'm just taking advantage of this facility. Sure. Well, firstly, let me say what a tremendous honor and privilege it is to be part of this 18th V. SANKAR AIYAR Memorial Lecture that is held today. My sincere appreciation to the family members of V. SANKAR AIYAR, especially Mr. Manishankar Iyer, who has joined us virtually, and Yamini, who have so admirably put together this truly memorable and timely lecture. Mr. Manishankar Iyer, who has been presumably the driving and guiding force behind this event, this memorial lecture for 18 years, I just wanted to put it in context because I read about his father, V. SANKAR AIYAR, who passed away in 1953 when Mr. Manishankar Iyer would have been 12 years old as a boy when he lost his father. For someone like that to put together an event for 18 years itself is an amazing tribute, and I'm just humbled to be here. I also want to acknowledge the graceful introductory remarks of CA Revati Raghunathan, who has given a very positive and favorable interpretation of what lawyers and chartered accountants do. Thank you for this, ma'am. I was reminded of an old joke when she said that. The joke goes something like this. A father has 3 sons. Let us say the first son is a bureaucrat, the second daughter is the chartered accountant, and third is a lawyer. So the father asks the three of them, he says, I'll give you a big amount of money. Let's say I'll give you 1,000 rupees if you can tell me what is 2 plus 2. The bureaucrat says 4. The chartered accountant says it's 4, but I have to verify this through my audit. And the lawyer says back to the father, my fees is 1,000 rupees. Give me the 1,000 rupees, then I'll tell you the answer. So anyway, jokes aside, I think it's great that, all you future chartered accountants are here and you're forced to listen to a lawyer. But before I begin, I don't want to be accused as being unfair or ungrateful to my wonderful host and the very eloquent speaker before me, former Chief Election Commissioner, who is a giant amongst Indian bureaucracy, and it is our great privilege to have him here with us. But I can't help wonder if our esteemed speaker, in all his erudition on demography and delimitation, has forgotten to alliterate it with another D-lettered word, democracy. I don't blame our gentle speaker because it is a sign of the times that we live in, where democracy is often hiding and it is waiting for us to come and find it so that it can reveal itself to us. Us who are the deeply committed citizenry of this country. Yes, I hope you don't doubt yourselves. You are all, including me, we are deeply committed citizens, for we have been a constitutional republic for 75 years this last year. And that is no mean achievement. However, as the famous 19th century American revolutionary, who's one of my favorite orators, Frederick Douglass, he was born into slavery and spent his entire adulthood trying to become a free man. He remarked, 75 years is a significant lifetime for a man, but is only a speck of time when it comes to that of a country. So we have hardly been a country, and yet already we are here sitting here telling you that we are facing a huge constitutional crisis today. Ladies and gentlemen, that is why it is indeed timely and pressing that we have all gathered here to listen and understand an issue that can no longer be relegated only to constitutional commentaries or political vagaries. What today's event has done is to make the issue of census and delimitation become part of mainstream discourse. And for that, again, let me thank today's host and our wonderful speaker. I have been called here as a discussant, which, to be honest, I didn't know what it means, but it sort of makes my life equally enjoyable and exasperating. For one, I need not add anything to the comprehensive talk that we have just listened to, that has scanned the entire domain with such easy brilliance and intellectual honesty. However, on the other hand, I must try to add some value to this discussion. Otherwise, the whole idea of inviting a discussant next year will evaporate. So let me go back to my favorite orator, Frederick Douglass, who was once called upon. So this is a person who was born into slavery and spent all his life being a slave, and he had to escape to Europe in the late 18th century to become a free man. And he was called back to America after he was a free man. He was an African American by descent. And he was asked to speak as part of the celebration for the American independence, which usually happens every year on the 4th of July. Like I said, Douglass, who spent all his life, trying to become an equal in his own country, was asked to speak about his country's independence. And he very interestingly titled his speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July?" This is what he asked his audience, and I assume he reflected upon the invisible difficulties and inequalities faced by certain sections of the citizenry who were called to contribute and be part of a larger republic. And this, in a sense, is the delimitation issue. We are all very proud of our country, by questioning this process, it is not that we are asking for this country to be taken back to its earlier poorer state or undeveloped state. Yet, we want to understand how this will ensure that our citizenry is still maintained and how democratic equality will be protected. Delimitation, as our learned speaker has already explained, deals with two sections in the Constitution, Articles 82, which talks about changing the parliamentary constituencies, and Article 170, which deals about changing the legislative assemblies. And as he has pointed out, this has to happen after every census, and we have frozen this in 1976, and then we extended the freeze in 2001. So please remember, this is in the constitutional, it's not optional. It is the constitutional arithmetic of our democracy itself, and it is based on the underlying principle that one person, one vote, same voice. Now, as we have already known, India in her parliamentary wisdom in 1976 has chosen to pause this arithmetic. We froze the number of Lok Sabha seats. That is why it continues to be 543, and if you're a Tamil Nadu elector, you only have 234 legislative assembly seats. Now, there was a conscious and conscientious constitutional bargain. We stopped the increase in the seats as per the constitution in order to focus on population growth or contain population growth. This decision, I believe, was prudent, but it has left us governing a 21st century republic with a 1971 representational map. Let me be forthright. The controversy around delimitation is not just constitutional or technical, it is political, because delimitation will redistribute power. Northern states have grown rapidly in population. Southern states have not, because I believe they have made sustained investments in health, education, and more importantly, women's empowerment. So, a purely population-based delimitation would end up shifting political power from the south to the north and naturally reduce the influence that the southern states have. Now, the debate cannot be understood without the context. This debate is unfolding at a specific political moment. The north-south divide is real. Why do I say this? The southern states continue to be beyond the reach of the all-powerful political establishment. In the last 3 days, we have seen the governors of the states of Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka refuse to read the script and the address prepared by the elected state governments. This does not happen in any of the so-called in the north or east or west. But there's also a constitutional irony or a conundrum here. Don't forget, we are sitting in 2026. This was after the 2024 election. We have today a union government that is survived by coalition arithmetic. A critical pillar of this arithmetic is a southern state which has controlled population growth, and at the same time a state which has expressed concern against delimitation. This, like I said, creates an irony. The union government that benefits from potentially a delimitation exercise or wants a delimitation exercise also depends on a state and a political party that fears delimitation. So therefore, according to me, delimitation exercise cannot be taken as an inevitable outcome yet. And I say this because I believe, like very many political problems and issues, this is something that requires consensus building and not just a decision taken and then being thrusted upon us. So, in addition to what the learned speaker before me has mentioned, there are also other more simpler solutions. I do not have his expertise or experience with regard to bringing together proportional lists, but I can think of some simpler systems which can be made to work even if delimitation has to take place. For one, we can hold the delimitation exercise only with regard to the state assemblies. Now, Tamil Nadu, as I said, has 234 seats, and the Indian Parliament has 543. Now, you can keep the 543 freeze to continue for another 25 years, but change the number of seats in Tamil Nadu from 234 to 260. Uttar Pradesh may go from, I think it is 420 to 650, right? So that way, within the states, you are giving more voice to the people, but essentially keeping the national framework intact. This is a very simplistic suggestion. Likewise, within the Union Parliament, there is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. You can freeze the Lok Sabha and change the numbers in the Rajya Sabha. So on and so forth. The easiest option, and perhaps the constitutionally weak option, would be to extend the freeze for another 25 years. I say this because India today is at 1.45 billion. Like all countries, if we go on the same trajectory, we will also hit a maximum of 1.7, 1.75 billion and then start declining. This is just what is proposed by statistics and people who work with data. So therefore, another 25 years, we will see India's population growing up, stabilizing by and large, and potentially declining as well. So we don't need to do another exercise in another 25 years where we will have to reduce the number of Lok Sabha seats or assembly seats. Nevertheless, this exercise at this moment has ultimately forced us to ask, does representation mean the same thing to every state in our country? My suggestion is, if the answer is no, if even one state feels that it is an unjust procedure, then this is not only a mathematical problem, it is a constitutional design challenge. So, let me close by inviting you, my wonderful audience today, into this democratic discourse. Please think, how should India going forward balance the population equality with what I would call federal fairness? So every state feels the same way, and one state or two states don't feel that there is injustice meted out to them. Secondly, should not governance success or doing well in implementing health, education and women empowerment count for something with regard to representation, or should representation only be decided by pure numbers alone? Third, I want to put this to the students here. If you were designing delimitation today, what principles would you agree on? What would you refuse to compromise on? These are, like I believe, these are not just questions for the Delimitation Commission or the government or the parliament alone. They belong to all of us of this constitutional republic. Ultimately, delimitation is going to be a test of our constitutional maturity. Though we have only crossed the speck of the lifetime of this country, we have still crossed 75 years. Our constitution is maturing. So therefore, how we get through this phase is very important. And before I conclude, let me finish by saying that the real challenge is not choosing between whether you belong to the north of this country or the south of this country, but how can we design constitutional institutions that respect population, yet reward governance, and ultimately preserve the federal trust at the same time. Any solution to this delimitation crisis or problem is not just arithmetic. Only an approach that is fundamentally based on constitutional consensus building will succeed. Like I said, the context is always very important. We are at a political moment where finally coalition politics has returned to the union parliament or the union government. We are at a time where after 10 years or so, regional voices today matter more. We are at a time where demographic divergence is a lived reality. So therefore, delimitation cannot be just looked at with rigidity, but with constitutional humility and political intelligence. I hope we will see a country that does not merely just count people and redraw boundaries, but also count fairness, trust, and long-term unity. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. for this inspiring session. And your words have enlightened us with deep insight. Thank you for taking out the time. Now, I would like to call Miss Yamini ma'am for delivering the special address, followed by a word of thanks.
Shri Venkatraman, Srimati Raghunathan, Manu, Dr. Shri S.Y. Quraishi. On behalf of my father, Mr. SANKAR AIYAR, I want to extend my heartwarming thank you for such a wonderfully organized, thought-provoking and truly engaging discussion. It is a huge honor for me to have the opportunity to be here. My father, unfortunately, could not make it this year. He holds this lecture as a very, very personally important occasion for him. Both a remembrance of his father, whom he had a very short part of his life with, but a person who has in more ways than one shaped who he is as an individual, but also an opportunity to share in his legacy. The fact that there are so many young people here today are such an important reminder that every act of that we conduct in our lives as professionals, as individuals, can have a huge impact many, many years later on the world as such. Our legacies are beyond our immediate, and the opportunity to celebrate that legacy is such a rare privilege that my father has bequeathed upon his father and himself, and now upon me and future generations of my family. It is a very strange moment in many ways also to speak of a man whom I never met. There is a distant notion that we had a grandfather, a very present notion of our Amma, who was as much a powerful personality as the stories we hear of SANKAR AIYAR. But strangely, even my grandmother from my mother's side, my grandfather died when my mother was barely 2 years old. So again, another figure that we hear of but never encountered in our lives. Whereas my grandmother, my nani, as we call her in North India, was a very, very significant presence in our lives as well. And it is through these two very wonderful and powerful women that we learnt of the men who contributed to our lives. I have to say, as influential as the men were, ultimately, it was the power of the women in our family who made us who we are. So for all the young ladies sitting on this side of the theatre, everyone, our fathers are crucial, but our mothers really make us. Our grandfathers matter, but our grandmothers really make us. Yet it is a really, as a grandfather whom I didn't know, he still finds his way in so many ways into our lives, both for the company he set up. SANKAR AIYAR remains, at least in Delhi, one of the most important chartered accountant companies. And in fact, the research organization that I had the privilege of heading for many years, I discovered that their chartered accountants from 1980s was SANKAR AIYAR. So suddenly my grandfather and my grandfather's name became a very important part of the compliance that I had to ensure on an annual basis. And the statutory auditors, when they would enter our office, would always have me shaking a little bit, saying, I better make sure all the paperwork is incomplete, not just because the auditors have walked in, but SANKAR AIYAR somewhere from up there is looking to ensure that his granddaughter knows how to keep books of accounts as well as he would have liked. But the other, I think, really important contribution that he has made to us, to me, even though I never met him, is in his role in actually building the profession of chartered accountants. My grandfather, as all men and women of that generation, were the first generation that were building institutions of modern India, the very institutions that were shaped and framed by the constitutional values that we have learnt about and spoken about today. What makes a constitution is not just the institutions of government, like the Chief Election Commissioner's Election Commission, but also the institutions of all of us as society, as professions, as individuals, what we do, how we imbibe a sense of civic spirit in our work, and how we bring the constitutional values of equality, of liberty, of fraternity, and most importantly of all, of integrity to who we are as individuals contributing to our social purpose. So the institution of chartered accountants plays such an important role, not just in being really good chartered accountants and holding people like me to account, but also in ensuring that we as a society live up to the very ideals that our founding fathers set for us. My own grandfather's role in shaping that, I think in many ways plays its own strange role in me, and I hope in the generations to come, in infusing in us a reminder that what we do as individuals and as professionals matters hugely to ensuring that the very constitutional values that his generation were part and parcel of building, making, and establishing remain strong as we go forward. So being here, I've had the privilege of being here in this group a few times, and also the honor of speaking to a group like you some years ago. Over the course of the 18 lectures, my father has often used his privilege to bring some of his family members in to speak to you, and I had that opportunity as well. But in doing this, the one thing that I always take away as so important and so crucial, and a reminder of why coming here is so critical, is the fact that there is a institution like this that builds the professional norms and professional ways of being for all of you young CAs, all of you who are going to go out in the world and shape what it means to be a strong professional CA, checking the books of accounts when your father offers you 40 rupees, and holding these naughty lawyers to account too, to demand that they don't take 1,000 rupees to answer simple questions, and also make sure that their books of accounts are kept quite right because they need CAs to keep them in touch. But I will end by kind of bringing my family and this very important conversation that we have had together. As we were sitting down to this lecture today, Manu asked me, that picture of your grandfather, he looks very, very young. When did he pass away? And I was reminded that he went in the year 1953, and India voted just a year before that. So here he was. I thought about him as Quraishi Sahab was speaking. Here he must have been one of India's first voters. And just as I, as a voter, feel today, every time I stand in that polling booth, a sense of being able to do something for my country, a sense of being able to hold all these people who make far too much money on my taxpayers' money, which my auditor ensures I pays, to account. It's the only moment when I get to encounter the rest of my country in the same space as equals. We all stand together in the line. We all go in and vote for whoever it is of our choosing. It is that one moment when we have complete agency to ensure that those who represent us speak for our voices. I'm reminded of the fact that it wasn't easy for India to have this opportunity. It came on the back of a serious struggle where all citizens participated. These associations like this played such an important role in mobilizing all of us, our society, into ensuring that we fought for our own freedoms so that we had the power of our vote. Our democracy, as both Quraishi sir, who's been a protector of our democracy, and Manu also reminded, in this conversation of 2 Ds, there's a critical third D. Today, that third D needs all of our collective protection. It needs a collective protection to ensure that the process of voting genuinely represents our choice and not the choice of a cabal that can control it. It means that in ensuring that our choice is effectively represented, that all these very complex technical discussions that Quraishi sir so effectively simplified for all of us. What does it mean to have a first past the post system? What does it mean to have proportional representation? Why does a census, that for reasons that we really can't explain properly, which should have been done in 2021 and perhaps after COVID at least been done by 2023, gets delayed all the way to 2027, just as a delimitation exercise is on the anvil. As members of society, as voters, we should have asked our government this question loudly and clearly many years ago. But nonetheless, here we are at this moment where the census itself is going to play a very, very crucial role on shaping who and how we represent them. These answers may well be technical in their design, but ultimately, they can only be answered when we as a society collectively come together to have this conversation. Today's discussion, I think, is an important first step in that direction. But I will also say two more things. One, the reason this discussion matters so much is also because it holds the key to holding India's federal structure together. India is India not because we are one nation. India is India because we are so many all together in one nation. To ensure our federal story stays intact, that I can be sitting over here today, daughter of Shankar Aiyyar, but also daughter of Suneet Veer Singh, a proud Sardarji from Amritsar and Delhi, and still feel as much Tamilian as I feel Punjabi, and also quite Delhiite, even if the pollution means I can't breathe in Delhi, and coming to Chennai was such a pleasant experience for me. But the fact that I can be here and all of us together can have this conversation in English, in Hindi, in Tamil, all together, is because we are a federal country. How we ensure that all our voices get represented effectively so that we are not talking about North versus South or North and South, but all of us together as many Indians, where we can speak in Hindi and we can speak in Tamil, where we can enjoy a little bit of paneer, but also our doshais together. That is the answer that we need to find. India will not grow in our economy. India will not prosper as a people if we cannot find answers to these questions. How we get represented matters hugely precisely to this. And one last thing, in all the discussion we've had today, and especially in Quraishi sir's very important detailing of how we get represented, we have spoken about Government of India, we have spoken about state governments, we have also spoken about the fact that a large constituency and how that should be represented. When I vote for my MP should be speaking for my voice. When I vote for my MLA should be speaking for my voice and solving my problems. But we have not spoken about the most important part of our governance system, where all of these questions should be answered. How we get represented in Parliament would be a much more effective form of representation if our panchayats at the village level, at the block level, at the zilla level, also are empowered to respond to our everyday problems. If we can ensure that the street is cleaned on time and hold our local government and mayors to account, we will be asking very different questions of our MLAs and our representatives sitting in Delhi. Then we will be a genuinely mature democracy, and issues of delimitation matter there too, because how we define the jurisdiction of a local government, how we get as voters to vote for that local government, and how the state election commissions negotiate with the central election commissions also matter to this issue. So I just wanted to ensure, and since I am here representing my father, I wanted to make sure that we shouldn't ignore his passion, which is the panchayats, which he has also transferred to me. It is one of my passions too, in this conversation about representation, democracy, demography, and delimitation. On that note, thank you very much, Quraishi sir. It has been an honor and privilege for all of us in the Iyer family to have learned from you over many years, to have had the privilege of your friendship, but most importantly today, to have learned from you on such an important issue, and for you to have sort of thrown the ball into the court of public conversation. To Manu, thank you so much. Your remarks as a discussant proved to make my life even harder, because I had to come after two such erudite and powerful speakers who have added such great value to this conversation that I didn't know what I would say. And so I made up some mumbo jumbo. But it is a real honor to hear you. And you're absolutely right that ultimately this is an issue of democracy. It is being shaped by our present politics. And if we don't question, query, and interrogate the nature of politics we have today, then our democracy and our constitution are going to be in serious peril. And as always, thank you to the ICAI for honoring my grandfather and indulging my father, me, and my family to have the opportunity to remember him, but also to be part of your community and your work. So thank you very much. I'd also like to thank S. Rajkumar, MLA, who has played such an important role in our lives in so many ways, but also particularly today in the absence of my father, helping to organize today's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words and thoughtful vote of thanks. So now we have come to the end of the program. To conclude this, may I request everyone to kindly raise for the national anthem.
Jana mana adhinayak jaya hai, Bharat bhagya vidhata. Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha, Dravida Utkala Vanga. Vindhya Himachal Yamuna Ganga, उच्चल जलधि तरंगा. तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे. गाहे तव जय गाथा, जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता. जय हे, जय हे, जय हे, जय 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 हे.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With this national anthem, we bring this V. Shankar Aiyer Memorial Lecture to the close. Thank you.